see if we got anything yet. Are we live streaming? Let's verify by checking with Yahoo. It says we're live. Alright, great. Aloha! Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to my live stream from here in beautiful urban Honolulu. This gives you an idea of the cityscape. I'm showing you that. And today I've decided that I'm going to recite for you chapter 59 of my House of Ideology, entitled, chapter 59 is entitled Projection Theory, and you'll know what it's all about after I start talking. So, and then I'm going to be clicking between different cameras here, maybe while I'm doing this, so that you get a more interesting video. So here's a side view, and this just gives you an idea where we are. We're in a 2-bedroom apartment home. So let me go ahead and start without any further ado, reciting this text to you. I will be using a teleprompter because that seems like the most efficient way to get things done here. So here we go. Projection theory enables me. I predict some people believe in the value of pessimistic myths. These people tend to project. They gather truths about their set of living arrangements. They project their truths into their imaginations. They use their imaginations. They make myths. Their myths suggest their truths. Why do they tend to do this? Projection theory enables me. I offer an explanation. The explanation is they value certain ideas. These certain ideas are their values. They wish to use their senses and perceptions to confirm their belief in the value of their ideas. Many of their values are truths. Their senses and perceptions enable them. They can verify truths are true. For that reason, they can use their senses and perceptions to confirm their belief in the value of their truths. Many of their values are myths. Their senses and perceptions do not enable them. They cannot verify whether or not myths are true. They cannot verify whether or not myths are false. Myths are both unverifiable and unfalsifiable. For that reason, they can use their senses and perceptions. However, they cannot use their senses and perceptions to confirm their belief in the value of myths. However, their myths can suggest their truths. The act of suggesting their truths can enable them. They can use the act of suggesting their truths to confirm their belief in the value of their myths. Let us suppose the truths were a few paranoid, oppressive, violent people ruled over domestic territories. The few paranoid, oppressive, violent people were at war with outsiders. The outsiders ruled over foreign territories. People lived within the domestic territories. A system of reward and punishment existed. The system compelled the people. The people observed and obeyed the will of the few paranoid, oppressive, violent people. The people disregarded and disobeyed the will of the outsiders. In that event, projection theory would enable me, I would predict some of these people would have believed in the value of pessimistic myths. These pessimistic myths would have tended to project. These people would have tended to project. These people would have used their senses and perceptions, searched their surroundings, gathered truths about their set of living arrangements. These people would have projected their truths into their imaginations. They would have made myths. Their myths would have suggested their truths, and the act of suggesting their truths would have enabled these people. These people would have been able to have used, these people would have used the act of suggesting their truths to confirm their belief in the value of their myths. Let us suppose their myths were, a good entity rules in heaven. The good entity is at war with an evil entity. The evil entity rules over the earth. A system of divine eternal reward and abominable infernal punishment exists. The system compels the faithful. The faithful must observe and obey the will of the good entity. The faithful must disregard and disobey the will of the evil entity. In that event, the act of suggesting their truths would not make their myths into truths. Their myths would remain myths. However, projection theory would enable me. I would predict the act of suggesting their truths would have enabled these people. These people would have used the act of suggesting their truths to confirm their belief in the value of their myths. Let us suppose the truths were the needs and aspirations of the few paranoid, oppressive, violent people included achieve and maintain authority, power, order, and control. For that reason, the few paranoid, oppressive, violent people gained influence over religious authority figures. Religious authority figures gained influence over communities of faithful believers. Communities of faithful believers gained influence over members, and members affirmed an ability to know. The few paranoid, oppressive, violent people are representatives of the good entity here on planet Earth. The few paranoid, oppressive, violent people are divinely ordained to rule over domestic territories. The will of the few paranoid, oppressive, violent people is, in fact, the will of the good entity. The few paranoid, oppressive, violent people are at war with outsiders. The outsiders are representatives of the evil entity here on planet Earth. The outsiders are not divinely ordained to rule over foreign territories. The will of the outsiders is, in fact, the will of the evil entity. In that event, projection theory would enable me. I would predict their myths suggested their truths. The act of suggesting their truths enabled these people. These people were able to use the act of suggesting their truths to confirm their belief in the value of their myths. Let us suppose time passes. The few paranoid, oppressive, violent people no longer rule over domestic territories. A democracy rules over domestic territories. The democracy supports a large middle class. The large middle class forms a secular, pluralistic society. The secular, pluralistic society supports freedoms and rights. The freedoms and rights of people. In that event, the people would be subject to a new set of living arrangements. Let us suppose communities of faithful believers still exist. Members still believe in the value of these pessimistic myths. In the minds of members, confirmation of their belief in the value of these pessimistic myths means members are correct in their belief in the value of these pessimistic myths. Members wish to be correct. For that reason, these members wish to use their senses and perceptions, gather truths about their set of living arrangements, and find these pessimistic myths suggest their truths. Members would like the act of suggesting their truths to enable them. They would like to be able to use the act of suggesting their truths to confirm their belief in the value of these pessimistic myths. However, the absence of an autocracy complicates things. The absence of psychotic extremes of poverty and wealth complicates things. The absence of a religious elitist society complicates things. The absence of slaveries and wrongs complicates things. Let us suppose further, some members don't like these complications. The members blame the democracy, the large middle class, the secular pluralistic society, freedoms and rights, for all manner of social ills. The members tout a return to a universal belief in the value of these pessimistic myths as a remedy. The members wish to replace the democracy with an autocracy. The members wish to replace the large middle class with psychotic extremes of poverty and wealth. The members wish to replace the secular pluralistic society with a religious elitist society. The members wish to replace freedoms and rights with slaveries and wrongs. Let us suppose even further, loud voices spread out across the land. The loud voices shout from the mountaintops about their belief in the value of these pessimistic myths. The loud voices affirm an ability to know these pessimistic myths are truths. The loud voices attract communities of faithful believers. Members become candidates. The candidates campaign for political office. Communities of faithful believers support their campaigns. Their campaigns attract the support of the majority of voters. The majority of voters elect the candidates. The candidates become politicians. The politicians enact policies. The policies enable the few people to concentrate wealth, income, and power into their own hands. The few people rule over domestic territories. Success attracts competition. The concentration of wealth, income, and power into the hands of the few people makes the competition to rule homicidal, genocidal, and suicidal at times. A few people become a few paranoid, oppressive, violent people. Let us suppose, finally, the few paranoid, oppressive, violent people replace democracy with autocracy. The few paranoid, oppressive, violent people replace the large middle class with psychotic extremes of poverty and wealth. The few paranoid, oppressive, violent people replace the secular pluralistic society with a religious elitist society. The few paranoid, oppressive, violent people replace freedoms and rights with slaveries and wrongs. In that event, projection theory predicts members would use their senses and perceptions, search their surroundings, gather truths about their set of living arrangements, and find their pessimistic myths suggest their truths. The act of suggesting their truths would enable these members could use the act of suggesting their truths. They could confirm their belief in the value of their pessimistic myths. These members could do so without complications. Let us suppose members affirm an ability to know. The good entity chose prophets. The good entity revealed visions of the future to the prophets. Religious authority figures wrote down the exclusive divine revelations of spiritual knowledge as words in a set of sacred scrolls. The religious authority figures know how to translate and interpret the words. The religious authority figures say, the visions of the future are, these are the end times. A great tribulation will occur. Afterward, Armageddon. Armageddon is a necessary, final, horrible war. After Armageddon occurs, the good entity will have a final victory over the evil entity. In that event, projection theory predicts the visions of the future make predictions about the final outcome of the competition to rule. The predictions are a horrible war will occur. After the horrible war, the few paranoid, oppressive, violent people will have a final victory over the outsiders. The few paranoid, oppressive, violent people rule over domestic territories. The outsiders rule over foreign territories. So in effect, this means the prediction is, after a horrible war, the few paranoid, oppressive, violent people will rule the world. The identities of insiders and outsiders are a matter of point of view. The locations of domestic and foreign territories are also a matter of point of view. For that reason, the few paranoid, oppressive, violent people in every territory can claim to be the representatives of the good entity for whom the visions of the future predict final victory. Let us suppose members affirm an ability to know. The good entity revealed further visions of the future to the prophets. Religious authority figures say the further visions of the future are, after the good entity has a final victory over the evil entity, the good entity will judge all people. The good entity will use a system of divine eternal reward and abominable infernal punishment. The good entity will find some people observed and obeyed the will of the good entity. The good entity will reward these people. The good entity will elevate those people to a place of divine eternal bliss. The good entity will find some people disregarded and disobeyed the will of the good entity. The good entity will punish those people. The good entity will throw those people into a place of abominable, infernal torment. In that event, projection theory predicts The visions of the future make predictions about the future behaviors of the few paranoid, oppressive, violent people. The predictions are, after the few paranoid, oppressive, violent people have a final victory over the outsiders, the few paranoid, oppressive, violent people will judge all people. The few paranoid, oppressive, violent people will use a system of reward and punishment. The few paranoid, oppressive, violent people will find some people observed and obeyed the will of the few paranoid, oppressive, violent people. The few paranoid, oppressive, violent people will reward those people. The few paranoid, oppressive, violent people will elevate those people to a place of safety and refuge. The place of safety and refuge will be a haven on earth. Some people, the few paranoid, oppressive, violent people will find some people disregarded and disobeyed the will of the few paranoid, oppressive, violent people. The few paranoid, oppressive, violent people will punish those people. The few paranoid, oppressive, violent people will throw those people into a place of danger and exposure. The place of danger the place of danger and exposure will be a hell on earth. Some of those people will perform slave labor under horrendous conditions until they die of disease or starvation. Some of those people will be murdered upon arrival. Projection theory enables me. I predict some people believe in the value of pessimistic myths. These people tend to project. These people use their senses and perceptions. They gather truths about their set of living arrangements. These people project their truths into their imaginations. They use their imaginations. They make myths. Their myths suggest their truths. For that reason, their myths are pessimistic myths. A pessimistic myth is a spiritual conflict between a good entity and an evil entity divides the spiritual realm. The myth suggests a truth. The truth is a primal conflict between predator and prey divides our body-consuming biosphere. A pessimistic myth is a good entity rules in heaven. The myth suggests a truth. The truth is a few paranoid, oppressive, violent people ruled over domestic territories. The pessimistic myth is the good entity is at war with an evil entity. The pessimistic myth suggests a truth. The truth is the few paranoid, oppressive, violent people were at war with outsiders. A pessimistic myth is an evil entity rules over the earth. The myth suggests a truth. The truth is the outsiders ruled over foreign territories. A pessimistic myth is a system of divine eternal reward and abominable infernal punishment exists. The pessimistic myth suggests a truth. The truth is a system of reward and punishment existed. The pessimistic myth is laws of a deity exist. The myth suggests a truth. The truth is the laws of the state existed. A pessimistic myth is the laws of a deity and or deities govern the behavior, fate, and destiny of matter and energy in the known universe. The pessimistic myth suggests the truth. The truth is laws of cause and effect predict the behavior and fate of matter and energy in the known universe. A pessimistic myth is a savior exists. The savior loves you. The myth suggests a truth. The truth is, people often form lifelong relationships with a spouse. Let us suppose a person is willing to accept the spouse into their heart. In that event, the spouse would exist. The spouse would love the person. The pessimistic myth is punishments for breaking the laws of a deity and or deities exist. The myth suggests a truth. The truth is, disease and death exist. A pessimistic myth is rewards for obeying the laws of the deity and or deities exist. The myth suggests a truth. The truth is, life and immunity exist. A pessimistic myth is spiritual stratification exists. The myth suggests a truth. The truth is, socioeconomic stratification existed. A myth suggests the truth. The place of abominable infernal torment exists. The myth suggests a truth. The truth is, the fiery interior of the earth exists. A pessimistic myth is, a place of divine eternal bliss exists. The myth suggests a truth. The truth is, the sky exists. A pessimistic myth is, a deity exists. The myth suggests a truth. The truth is, the moon exists. A pessimistic myth is, a deity exists. The myth suggests a truth. The truth is, the sun exists. A pessimistic myth is, a deity exists. The myth suggests a truth. The truth is, the universe exists. A myth is, a godless totality exists. The myth suggests a truth. The truth is, we know a finite amount of truth about an infinite subject. Projection theory enables me, I predict, some people believe in the value of pessimistic myths. These people tend to project. They gather truths about their set of living arrangements. They project their truths into their imaginations. They use their imaginations. They make myths. Their myths suggest their truths. For that reason, their myths are pessimistic myths. The act of suggesting their truths enables these people. These people can confirm their belief in the value of their pessimistic myths. The most optimistic myths do not suggest their truths. The act of not suggesting their truths does not enable them. They can not confirm a belief in the value of the most optimistic myths. For those reasons, they value pessimistic myths. They devalue the most optimistic myths. We know next to nothing about almost everything. The totality makes possible an infinite number, diversity, and variety of myths. Optimism correlates with happiness, good health, and prosperity. For that reason, the logical, rational, sane choice to make when orienting the self to the world and explaining the world to the self is a belief in the value of the most optimistic myths. All right, we got all the way through it. Whoa! There were a few little bobbles here and there, but the general gist of it is there. You understand what I'm talking about. Now let's discuss it a little bit. We'll discuss it. Still getting used to using this teleprompter I'm using, so I found out that I can actually click on it and it'll stop for a while if I get behind, but I didn't realize that while I was so I learn something new every day when I do live streaming. This is considered practice for me, and we're just going to try things and see what works, what doesn't work, and attempt to get better and better at it, right? The first step in improving is to practice, right? Practice makes perfect. And in order to practice, you have to be willing to accept that you might suck at it. And so my advice to anybody out there who wants to do something and they say, well, I can't do that. Anybody who says they want to do something, but what's going on with my stomach? My advice to anybody who says to themselves they want to do something, but then they tell themselves, no, I can't do that, I suck at that, is dare to suck. Dare to suck at it, because that's how you get better at it. You come back and you figure out what about what you did sucks, and what can I do to make it better? And you just keep making improvements over time. And eventually you'll get to a point where you don't suck anymore at it. You're great at it. And I'm doing everything myself right here. This is it. I'm the AV guy, I'm the lights guy, I'm the cameraman, and well, I have a lot of help from a lot of other people, and I just want to say thank you very, very much to everybody who made it possible for me to do this live stream. It is really an amazing thing that I'm able to do this. And thank you for your generosity. Your generosity is an inspiration. You inspire me. I wish us happiness, good health, and prosperity. I offer you my best regards.